Anyway, my name is Barclay Brown, so welcome. This is a workshop on buying RV real estate. And if you're wondering what RV real estate is, that'll be part of the workshop to tell you what RV real estate is, and then you can be excited about buying it, right? Or selling it. I don't know. You might have RV real estate to sell. This thing is going to be bugging me the whole time. I can already tell, right? Let me bend it a little bit. It needs some tape. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Duct tape, not duct tape. I know better than that. Use medical tape is what you use, right? Because that's somehow... What it needs is a clip so that this has more... All right, anyway. Moving on. So by way of introduction, here's who I am. I'm a realtor in Florida, and this interest in RV real estate has kind of been the combination of a couple of other interests, right? So I've been a long-time RVer. Well, I say long time, 10 years. Some of you have probably been RVing a lot longer than that, perhaps. Not a comment on anyone's age or anything, but it's just you may have had a lifelong interest, you know. I bought my first bus, which was the one before this one, about 10 years ago, and I've been sort of I was a full-timer for 4 years, in fact, in the coach, and then since then I have some other homes, and I'll talk about some of that later. By trade, I'm an electrical engineer and a systems engineer and kind of a computer technical engineer kind of person, but also with an MBA background and a master's in psychology that helps a little bit in dealing with people and real estate and negotiation and that sort of thing. So got a lot of different interests. I'm now what I would call a part-time full-timer. Anybody like that? In other words, you have a home, but you take off and go full-timing for months at a time or something, right? So you're a full-timer part of the year, right? That's kind of what I'm doing mostly right now. As a realtor, then I specialize, though, in RV real estate. So I thought this would be interesting to kind of share some of this. This is the first time this workshop's been offered, so we're interested in your comments on the little form, about whether you like the content and that sort of thing, or how you would like to see it changed in future things and so on. All right. I'd say represent buyers. That's kind of my focus, is to represent buyers really from anywhere in the country. Specifically, I'm licensed in Florida, so I'm specifically oriented toward RV real estate in Florida, which is a pretty popular place for RV real estate, of course, right? That's why I'm there. But I also get involved in RV real estate things in other parts of the country as well. So, and I can also represent sellers who are trying to sell RV real estate, and we'll talk about that later. All right, so this is the outline for what we'll cover here this morning, and I'd like to go ahead and make this interactive. So if you have questions, you can interrupt me anytime. Just wave your hand, and we'll deal with the questions as we go. I think that'll be a little more fun, right? So feel free to interrupt at any time with questions, and we'll deal with that. So we'll look at what is RV real estate, what are the different types, the trade-offs between them, what kinds of properties are available in these different categories. A little mini part in the later about why Florida, why I think Florida is a great place to think about RV real estate. What are some of the rules that apply, both government rules and other kinds of rules that may apply as you think about RV real estate, and a little bit about why you as a realtor in this kind of thing. All right, here we go. So some of you may have found in your RVing adventures that staying in RV parks, they don't all look exactly like this, but sometimes they feel like this, don't they? Right? Where you're really hemmed in, and sometimes an RV park isn't the most wonderful place to stay just because the quarters are close. It's hard to maneuver in sometimes. I've had some of these hassles myself, right? I mean, my rig's not the biggest in the world. It's a 40-foot bus, but it's still hard to wiggle it into some places, And I found other places where I might stay that have more space, that are more interesting. And so that's kind of driven me to this thought about, well, what about owning something, and doing something creative with it? Well, so what's RV real estate for you? Why would you think about that? I was talking to someone just briefly on the way in, and she said, my husband's coming, and I really want to buy some real estate, and the implication was he would rather just stay a full-timer, right, without the real estate part. I'm not pointing to anybody, but you probably know who you are as I said that, right? And maybe there's more than one like that in here, Anybody have, disagreements about that, like a house versus just the RV or both? Maybe this is a way to do both, so stay tuned. All right. But why? Well, one thing is to avoid that situation, to have your wonderful, nice RV parked in some mini storage lot when you're not using it, right? Which is just kind of like, doesn't that RV just look sad there? It's just not happy sitting there, It doesn't have any power. It doesn't get any love. It just kind of sits there, It's a little bit exposed, Anyway, so not that that's horrible, but it's too bad. All right. So the idea is, could I keep the RV at home, whatever home means, and we'll get to that. And it's powered and ready to go. It's ready to take trips. I kind of integrate the RV. There's all these rules in neighborhoods. It's funny to read them sometimes, and you can tell they were written to enable people to bring their RV temporarily to their house so they can load it up so they can go on a trip. And I read that and I go, what a hassle. right? I'm allowed to park the RV in front of the house for a certain number of hours during a certain time of the day, so that I can load it up, and then all my neighbors get mad at me anyway, because they probably think it's not allowed, Anyway, so one aspect of having an RV home is just to make it more convenient to go RVing. See? Isn't that kind of funny, right? But it can work that way. Also, some people want to relocate to a nicer climate and sort of have a home base. You're from, I don't want to pick on Ohio, but I guess I will. You're from, Ohio, right? And you have an RV and you travel in the RV and so forth, but you keep having to go back to Ohio. Now, Ohio is wonderful and everything, but maybe you're thinking, gee, wouldn't it be nice if our kind of home base was someplace we wanted to go weather-wise? Maybe it's in Florida, maybe it's in the Southwest or something like that. So you can still have roots, and I like this one, have two homes or one. See, if you have a home where your RV can sit comfortably as part of the property, then that's one home with your home and your RV. Then you can take the RV somewhere else, and now you have two homes. And you can travel between those two homes, right? Leave the RV one place, possibility. I do that. That's one thing I do, right? All right. It's also sometimes nice when you have visitors. Have you noticed that sometimes when you have visitors to come stay with you, they can't all stay in your RV with you? Have you noticed that? Yeah, there's always hotels, but sometimes it would be cool to have a home and you can put the guests in the home and you can stay in the RV and it kind of all works together. That's a possibility as well. And there's even the potential for investing in real estate. Now, most of you look like you've been through a number of real estate cycles. So you're not like some of these young people I talk to who think real estate is a terrible investment because of just the last 10 years. Or the last 6 years, right? You've been around a long time. You see real estate goes up and down, but generally it goes up over time. And RV real estate should be no different. It should also have a regular appreciation over time. Not guaranteed, but typical, right? And some of us still have stuff. Anybody got too much stuff in your RV? And sometimes you wish you had a place to put some of your stuff. So if you had some sort of an RV home, you could have, place for stuff. All right. So types of RV real estate. So let's look at these different types. Your RV probably doesn't look like this, but this applies to many different kinds of RVs. I don't think they ever built that one, but it's cool looking, isn't it? All right, so let's look at these different types of RV real estate. The first one, as I promised a friend I was just talking to, also in real estate back here, let's talk first about deeded RV sites. So you've probably seen this, you've heard these. There's people at the show here exhibiting and talking about their properties that do this. Certainly when you go to an RV park, you can rent a spot, right? That's sort of like an apartment. And if you've a full-time, you've probably rented by the month too, right? You can pay for a week or a month or even a half year or a year sometimes, right? But that's sort of like renting an apartment, right? You don't own it, you're just renting for whatever time you're renting, Well, a deeded RV spot, you actually own it. It's much more similar to a condominium. You know how a condominium works, right? When you buy a condominium, you own the space. Generally, the definition is from the midpoint of the wall, from halfway into the wall in. Right? So you own the wall surface on the inside, the shared association owns the wall surface on the outside, right? You own that airspace within there. So a deeded RV lot is very similar, right? You own the lot and what's on that lot, but then through the association you own the common areas, the pool and the clubhouse and the facilities and the landscaping and all of that, right? So it's very similar to that. Advantages, you're in control, you can come and go when you want. It's your place. There's just a different feel to it than having an RV park where you regularly come and rent every year versus you own the thing. You own that spot. That's your little piece of the planet, Sometimes it's the nicer RV parks that have ownership. The lots can be bigger, they can be nicer, there can be more amenities. Not always, but a lot of times the ownership parks are like that. It can go up in value, as we said. It can offer rental income, and we'll get a little more specific about that in a moment. But there's an aspect of what if you buy an RV lot and you say, well, I'm going to buy this RV lot, but I don't want to stay here all the time. I mean, it's an RV, right? I want to go travel, but I want to own this lot. Well, when you're gone, they can rent it out for you. So there's some income potential, investment potential with a deeded RV site. And sometimes you see amenities right at your site. Some of these, you can't see too much detail in this one. I chose this one just because the landscaping is so nice here. Anybody been to this one? Outdoor Resorts in Indio. It's out near Palm Springs, California. Beautiful park. Just the landscaping and the color and it's the desert, wildlife and that sort of thing. All these flowers, of course, grow in the desert, don't they? With a really good irrigation system, they grow in the desert. All right. Yeah, I stayed there once. That was real nice. So, but on your site, sometimes you can have quite a lot of amenities, right? It can be either a concrete pad and a hookup post. That's the minimum, right? But they may also have lanai, a little outdoor patio kind of thing. Some have a big, fancy outdoor kitchen even, with the big grill kind of thing, and for entertaining in a bar, and it can get quite elaborate. And then we get into things like, does it have a little storage building? Does it have a little suite, and so on? So it can kind of be a pad plus something. Also, something by owning an RV site, you can have permanent arrangements. You can set up cable service at the site. You can set up a permanent satellite dish if you want. You can have permanent utilities there. You can have a library card with the local library because you own property in that place. Have you noticed that when you're full-timer, it's a little hard to get a library card, except wherever your home base is in South Dakota or something, you know? So, now, anyway, that's another story. All right, so what else about RV site ownership? Well, there's a wide range of prices, right? And I've kind of studied this a little bit. I won't claim that I know every RV site that's for sale in the world. But here are just a few examples from Florida, some of my more favorite places. But I've seen deeded RV spots in parks for under $10,000. Now, that's kind of interesting, right? Now, they're not in Key West, right? Okay. But they may be in the Georgia mountains. There are parts of Florida. I saw one just the other day. You know Lake Okeechobee? Ever heard of Lake Okeechobee? Second largest freshwater lake in the United States. Big old lake, right? Right on the shore, there's a number of RV parks, and some of them are ownership-oriented, and some of those spots are under $10,000. I mean, nice place. Not in the middle of a city, not in the middle of Fort Lauderdale, but real nice, right? And this thing's falling off again. There we go. All right. So, and I've seen some in parks like that one near Palm Springs for over $200,000. Now, do they actually get $200,000? I don't know, maybe. You know, but those are very fancy sites, big sites, a lot of amenities, and a lot of things like that. And again, the rule of real estate, value is determined by 3 factors. Do you know these 3 factors? Location, location, and location, right? So no different with this stuff. Location is a big factor in these kind of properties. All right, so lowest is going to be in rural areas, lakes, mountains, things like that. The highest is going to be other prime real estate areas that you already know are prime real estate areas. You know, Key West, you can judge by the hotel prices, by the other real estate prices as to about what a site is going to be. However, there are deals. I saw some lots in a park near not in Key West, but in the Keys, sort of in the middle of the Keys there, somewhere where a lot of people prefer, because Key West is kind of crazy busy. $49,000 was a site listed. And that was kind of shocking because most of them are much more. They're more 80s, 90s, 110 kind of deeded sites in the Keys. All right. Now, other expenses to just buying it, you will have a monthly or yearly fee that includes things like your water, your trash, usually your landscaping. It's kind of turnkey, so it's nice. There's nothing else you have to spend besides this one fee. And these fees tend to be you know, whatever they are. They can be a couple $100s a month or something, but again, that covers a lot of this stuff, water, trash, sewer, landscaping, and so on. The park will usually manage the rentals for you. There's 50 ownership RV parks that Woodall's lists. I suspect there's more. There's no central listing of these. There's no central registry, right? So it's kind of sometimes hard to find these things, and that's one of the reasons that intrigued me about this area of real estate is that it's not just something a real estate agent or broker can just look up for you. Because they're often not in the multiple listing service, which is where most real estate agents go, right? They have to be found kind of other ways, and it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a hidden market in some ways. All right, let's move on. Remember, if you have questions, just raise your hand. We can, you know, we've got time here. We can take questions as we go through. All right, let's look at an example for a return, ROI, return on investment, right? You remember this if you've got some financial background. But this is how you analyze a real estate income property. So I took a fairly realistic example, I think, of an RV ownership lot. So let's look at this. Well, let's say you bought the lot for $69,000, and let's say you paid cash for it, so there's no mortgage on it, right? The management fees are $250 a month, which again covers, you know, water, trash, landscaping, all the maintenance, all the park amenities, the pool, you know, all that stuff, right, is covered in that one fee. And then let's say you're going to pay taxes because you own it, right? So you're going to pay taxes, you're going to pay some insurance. On a lot itself, the insurance isn't going to be a lot because there's not a lot. Is that a pun? The insurance on a lot won't be a lot. Yeah, because there's not a lot of liability. I mean, you know, there's not a structure and so on. So anyway, but there is some insurance. You definitely want insurance. So let's call it $3,000 a year in taxes plus insurance, which will vary a lot by, you know, the area of the country and so on, right? Now, how much could you rent this thing for? Well, let's say if you were to rent it out, it rented for an average of $1,100 a month, and that would be a combination of somebody renting it for a month, for a week, for a couple days, and so on. Obviously, the daily rates are higher. You know how these rates work, right? So, but let's say it averaged out to $1,100, and I think that's fairly typical. In the Keys, you could get much more than that. You know, I've seen rents in the Keys, a typical spot is renting around, what, $350 a week, $400 a week? Could be more than that. A week, that's a week, not a month, right? There's parts of the country where it's $350 a month, right, in some parks, right? So the Keys are sky high on that. But let's say $1,100 a month, and then let's say, well, we don't want to rent it out the whole time. That would be boring. We never get to use it. So let's say we're just going to rent it out 65% of the time. The other 35% of the time, we'll use it, or it'll just sit empty, because it's between rentals or something like that. All right. So let's say that. And let's say the lot's going to appreciate at 3% annually. Real estate typically overall across the market over the long haul of history appreciates at more like 7% annually, something like that. So we'll be conservative, and times are getting better. Real estate's at still pretty low in a lot of areas, so 3% is probably reasonable. And let's say we're going to own this thing 10 years and sell it after 10 years. What's the overall return on investment that we get from that whole project? And it turns out to be 4.8%. And I did that with a real estate investment calculator you can find right there. By the way, the form that you got when you came in, this form right here, it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you at least put your name and your email address, I'll send you a copy of these materials so you can have all this, right? So at least put that. If you're interested in RV real estate in some other way, you can fill out some of the rest of it if you want, and I'll get back with you about that. All right. So I thought that was pretty interesting. 4.8%. For one, that's not bad, right? As money goes invested these days. And secondly, notice it wasn't just an investment. We stayed there up to 35% of the time. A third of the year we stayed there, and we still made money on this thing overall. So you had a question, please.
Yeah, how realistic is it to think that you could rent it each month of the year, say, in Central Florida, South Florida?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have a lot of numbers on that. I try to get numbers when I can. But in South Florida, they do pretty well. You can judge by the rental rates, right? If they weren't getting it as well, they'd have a lot more discounts. And they do discount it in the off season. You know what the off season for South Florida is? The summer, right? The off season is just almost starting right now. Sort of April starts the off season, right? But they do rent during the summer. People do come down there for the summer. They're crazy, right? They're like, summer vacation, we're going to South Florida, Okay, great. Another question, please.
One thing I wanted to know is when the park rents it and manages
Yeah.
it, they take a percentage of that, don't they?
Yeah, they do some.
Excuse me. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, thanks. Good idea. So the question was, when the park rents it for you, do they take a cut of it? Some of them do, and that can vary a lot too. So that's right. I didn't include that. I kind of included that in the overall rent number. So you're right. We should maybe adjust for that, depending on whether you're renting it. Also, parks vary on whether you can rent it yourself or whether you have to rent it through them, right? So I've seen some parks where you can market it yourself through Craigslist or through your real estate agent or whatever you want, and kind of market that rental yourself, and then you could keep more of it, having to pay for rental. That's a very good point. Thanks. Was there another question I saw somewhere? Yeah, please.
Places, but are you going to be showing some of the build your own?
Yes, coming up. Okay, move on, right? Okay, so let's go to the next category of RV property. And we'll call this RV port homes, and that's usually what they're called. RV port meaning similar to a carport, right? Carport is for a car, RV port is for an RV. But it's typically not enclosed. It's not like an enclosed garage. So here you see the RV peeking out of the RV port in these examples. Now these vary in size. Typically they're 1 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 2 bathrooms. Sometimes they can be as small as a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Sometimes they call that an executive suite. It's just a small residential structure it's almost like it's an RV site with this small suite attached to it, right? So not even a full home structure. Most often, in fact, almost exclusively, these are in communities of similar homes. In other words, this was a development that somebody said, we're going to have a development of RV port homes. And here they come, and we're going to sell them, and that's how they are. So that's good and bad, right? The good of that is you're with similar people. Nobody has a problem with RVs in that neighborhood, right? Because that's a whole neighborhood of RVers, right? The limitation is what? You can only go where those things are, right? Those communities are only in certain places, and if you want to go there and buy there, great. Then that's a good idea. See? So there's not as much flexibility, of course, as something else that could be in a lot of different places. Florida these are popular, right? There's probably more of them in Florida than any other single state, but there are plenty in other places as well, California, the Southwest. There's a surprising number of RV developments in some of the northern states. Now, why would that be? Like Michigan and all that. For the summer, exactly, right? The reverse snowbird thing, right? We're getting out of this heat and we're going to Maine or Michigan or something. All right, but back to this. So these, obviously, you can buy new and customize or buy a resale home. Buying new would mean I go to a place that has an empty lot and I say, I want an RV port home similar to all these others that you've built, but we want ours kind of this way and this way and this way. Customize the design a little bit, and there you go. It's a building project. Or somebody who's bought one before in that complex is moving out, and wants to sell it. So that thing will be on the open market either through the regular multiple listing service kind of real estate thing or through the office itself in that development, right? They'll have an in-house broker, and that broker will represent that property as well. It's another way to buy what we call a resale. A resale means somebody owned it before and it's being sold again, like a lot of existing homes, right? This kind of a home, this kind of format would probably not be allowed by the homeowner association in any kind of normal development, all right? We'll talk about HOAs a little bit more later, but basically HOAs and RVs tend to not get along very well in most cases, right? And there's a big reason for that. Well, I'll get to it in a little. We'll leave you in suspense about that one. All right. So there are some compromises in design. This is my opinion about these. I'm not against these. There's nothing wrong with these. The compromises tend to be illustrated. See this picture right here? This home, this is a look inside the home. I always thought that the home side of an RV port home is kind of shaped like an RV. Because the way they sometimes build these is sort of side by side, right? Here's the RV space, and then right next to it is an almost identical size space for the home, right? So the home tends to be sort of shaped like an RV. You know, it's long and narrow and kind of tall, you know. And that's not necessarily negative. Again, this is not an unattractive home, but it's kind of shaped that way, right? And that's the format of these things. So let me see. Anything else to say about this? And they can be quite significant. I look at this one here. This has an RV port, but it's actually a sizable house there as well. So these come in a number of sizes. Some of the complexes that provide these, I think of just talking to the broker at Mount Olive Shores North. This is a big community in kind of central Florida. And they have many sizes of these that they're building, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. And the broker was telling me, he says, we've never built the same one twice. Because everybody wants it a little different. That's one of their advantages is you go there to build, they can kind of do it the way you want it, and that sort of thing. There we go. So that's an RV port home. And again, the key to those is they're in a specific community. So if you're looking for this, the question is not where are they, but where are the communities that have these? Because these were specific developments developed that way. And I've seen them, in a lot of different places. Florida, probably most of them, I would say. Here's some of them, in fact. Okay. So there's Mount Olive Shores. These are a few in Florida. Not all in Florida. I think this one is, where's that one? Texas, Willow Lakes, I forget. Great Outdoors, also Florida. So you see a lot of different styles. Some of these developments are really big, which, again, do you like that or not, right? It's quite a sizable community. It's like a little town of all of you people, right, with RVs and RV ports and so forth. Now, they're not always all there, are they, right? Because they're out traveling in their RVs sometimes, All right. So that's this class of property. Again, if you're interested in these, to buy these, if you can find a real estate agent who understands this kind of property and knows how to find these across a wide geography, like maybe you're looking all over Florida, where are the best ones, then you can go that route. Otherwise, you need to go, find the individual parks, right? You go to the park, there's some exhibiting here at the hall, right? And you go talk to them, and of course, the person there is going to be very oriented toward their property, right? They're trying to sell you their property, of course. Of course, that's how it works, right? All right. Now, let's talk about RV homes. So we kind of go up the scale a little bit in terms of size and complexity, but also flexibility, right? An RV home is typically an otherwise normal home that has some additional RV features, kind of either tacked on or built in or designed in or something like that. Normally, this starts with an integrated RV garage. It can also include, or it certainly would include full hookups, at least electric, water, that sort of thing. And perhaps a workshop, right? Anybody like workshops? Workshop is important, right, along with the RV. Can be set up for trip preparation, so in other words, it's a full-on home, but it may have features. I've seen some that think about, all right, when somebody's leaving for a trip, they're going to be taking clothes from their closets in the house and moving them into the RV. So let's architect this thing so that that's not a long, arduous trip, right? And let's not put the master bedroom over here and the RV all the way over here, because that's going to be a long trip carrying that stuff back and forth. Same for the kitchen, right? If I'm moving stuff from the pantry into the RV and back and forth, let's make that close. So these can get quite interesting when you think about the design of how to make it practical to, again, incorporate the RV and the use of the RV into the home, right? So these can be built, quote unquote, anywhere, all right, with some provisions that we'll get into here, right? But they can be built anywhere on any kind of lot. Here's one sitting out this is in South Carolina, I think, and this one actually looks kind of tacked on, doesn't it? It kind of looks like this was the house design right here, and then before they built it, they said, well, let's put an RV garage right over here on the end, and I don't know, that's not unattractive. It's maybe not the most attractive thing, but there you go. So that was somebody who got a house in a normal area, and then they got their RV garage as well. It's difficult with HOA rules, although there is an interesting way around that. So we'll get into that. Let me show you a few examples of RV homes, because these, even more than the other categories, these vary a lot, right? They're as individual as people who have designed them and thought them up and built them and so forth. You don't normally find these plans in a standard builder's book, right? So they're always a little bit custom, a little bit different. Here's one that's a modest-sized home. You can see the RV garage. I think it's fair to say it dominates the appearance of this home, does it not? And that may or may not be a bad thing, right? Again, I'm not making value judgments on these, just kind of pointing out, right? All right, here's an interesting one. If you like interesting angles, you like that one? But, okay, that was nice. The grass is nice, the grass color. All right. Now, here we're getting to some that I sort of like myself. I kind of like the look of this one. Isn't that nice? This is in Colorado. And again, you notice a couple of things about the design here. They've taken the RV garage and they've pushed it back just slightly from the plane of the front of the other garage. You notice that? So it really de-emphasizes the size of that RV garage door. It doesn't look as big as it really is. I don't know how tall that door is. Maybe a 14-foot door? Probably. Should be a 14. If you're going to do an RV door, do a 14, because that'll accommodate pretty much any kind of coach. You just hate to, really want to buy that new coach, but it won't fit in your garage. Question, please. This is Colorado, as I recall. Colorado. Mm-hmm. You can see the land, sloping, kind of looks Colorado-ish. Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah. In the winter, you wouldn't be able to see the house. It would be, covered in snow, and the RV would be in, Florida. Yeah, that's the idea. All right. Here's another one. Again, not horrible. And this is kind of an interesting style here. Where would you think, this is kind of a Cape Cod sort of style, isn't it? Where would you think this might be located? Massachusetts. Yeah, exactly. How about Chicago? Yeah. This is a suburb of Chicago. So again, I bet somebody custom built this, right? And said, we're going to do this, we're going to look at the plans, and we're going to adapt the roof so the roof incorporates a similar shaped, RV garage here with this dormer style to kind of match these dormers, and they kind of made it work somehow, right? So that's another interesting example. Now here's one I like a lot. This one is from, you want to guess where this one is? Texas, exactly. You can sort of tell the look of that, right? So again, I like this. It's very spread out. This is Texas. Everything's big in Texas, right? So the house is kind of spread out, big property, nice big RV garage, kind of tucked over here. Again, here they stuck this one out, but because of the scale of the house, it doesn't dominate. Notice it's not the highest thing. See, they still have this feature up here that's a little higher than the RV garage, so it doesn't quite jump out in your face there with it. I think one of the reasons why people may do that is they might be thinking resale. And they're thinking, if I ever have to sell this thing and it screams, I'm all about my RV, then it's only going to appeal to a limited market. However, if it's a little bit, subtle like this, maybe if you consider that subtle, it might appeal to somebody who just wants a big workshop or has a boat that they want to store and take out occasionally, or has, any number of other uses for that big space. Or even just put a few cars in there. You can put a few cars end to end. You have a tandem style parking in the thing, right? So they might be thinking about that. So I kind of like the look of that one. That's not bad. Now this might be one of my favorites. This is Hunter Holmes, a very clever guy, and this is Colorado also, I think, is where he builds. But I just thought this is a very attractive design. And again, they've kind of made the lines work with the roof lines. The RV garage is not the tallest thing. They've kind of gone up with this one. And there's actually several living levels. There's some stuff up here, and there's other living space behind these garages that's back on the ground level on the back side, right? And so it's a very clever design. Notice features like this. See the little windows here on the side? I don't think those are real windows. Do you? But they're decorative, right? And they kind of balance they kind of break up what would otherwise be a giant blank wall. And you got to watch that. When you have an RV garage, you're going to have a giant blank wall on one side, right? So if that's unattractive, maybe you can do something like this. So I thought this was a really interesting design. Let me just take a breath here. Other questions, thoughts at this point? There's a couple. Yeah, please. So the question is, would you heat the RV garage? That's a great question. I thought about including it, but it's perfect you asked. Now I can tell you about it. You could ask about heating the RV garage or air conditioning the RV garage. Maybe the workshop is part of the RV garage, so you're thinking about maybe we should be able to cool it as well. The bottom line is certainly you can do that. What you cannot do, according to building code and safety as well, is you can't include that space in the heating and air conditioning system of the house. Now, why would that be prohibited? Not taxes. Safety. Why safety? Right. Carbon monoxide. if the garage, if any garage space is included in the house air conditioning system, heating and air conditioning system, there's a chance that exhaust can get circulated through the whole house if there were a car running in there. So they don't allow that. So what you would need is a separate heating and air conditioning unit for the garage. Now, one of the easiest ways to do that is what they call a mini split system. Have you ever seen those? It's a two-piece system, consists of a box that goes outside and a kind of a big register vent kind of thing that hangs up on the wall. And they connect just with a couple of tubes. They're really easy to install. So that's what you can do if you want to heat that. If you only want heat, of course, there's electric heaters that you can do just to heat the space as well, big forced air heaters and things like that. That's a possibility as well. Now, if all you're looking to do is to keep the RV from freezing, depending on your climate, you may or may not need to heat it. There might be enough heat that kind of leaks from the house in there to kind of keep it above freezing, given that it's enclosed. So it depends on whether you're trying to make it comfortable for you or just keep the RV from freezing. Another question back here and then up here. That's a great question. The question is, would it be easier to sell an RV home that's in an RV community or one that's not in an RV community? I don't know. I think we could take a survey here and we'd have a better answer than I could just give my thought, right? Because it goes to a lot of personal preference. I don't know, should we take a poll? How many, if you were going to have an RV home, how many of you would rather have it in an RV home community with a bunch of other RV homes? Okay, how many would not? How many would rather just have it in a neighborhood where you choose? Okay, so a bit more of the first, but kind of split, 60-40 maybe, something like that. Okay, so question here, please. Very good point. So the comment was a hydronic system can incorporate the garages because there's no airflow between the house and the garages. It's a coolant flow. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great idea. If you have hydronic system, you can include it. Yeah. So comment was in city, Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Much more desirable to have an RV garage. The properties that have those sell easier and better than houses that don't have an RV garage or feature. So if you're the only RV home around, it may be more desirable. It's a little bit like having a swimming pool. You ever bought or sold a home with a swimming pool? The real estate saying about swimming pools is they do add some value to the home, but they make it harder to sell because you can only sell it to somebody who wants a swimming pool. Nobody who doesn't want a swimming pool wants to buy a home with a swimming pool. That makes sense, right? But RV garage, not quite the same thing, and I'll give you an interesting example of this. Again, this has a lot of uses. Now, I was talking to an architect once, and architects are interesting, right? And this guy, somebody beeping? Somebody need to take their meds or something? Just kidding. All right. So he said, well, you've got this big RV garage door in the front. We were kicking around some designs. He says, why don't you put it on the back of the house? Why don't you put the door on the back of the house? I said, huh? He says, no, think about this. What if you had a driveway that goes right down, and what you do is you drive the RV right back behind the house, and then you just back it right into that garage. He says the RV garage door would be completely hidden from the street. You could decorate the front just so it looked like part of the house. You could completely hide the RV garage. That's kind of an interesting idea, right? And you just maneuver into it that way. So you're right. You'd have to have enough room on the side and the back to do it, of course. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Or you could have two doors and back, in and out, and yep. Or if you're in Texas, everything's big in Texas, you have a big old path, right, all the way drive. You have a pull-through RV garage. Send me pictures of that when you build that. All right. Did I forget a question? Was there another hand? Yeah, please, go ahead. Yeah. Could you set up a property? Now we'll get into some creative property ideas in a minute. So I thought where you were going was sort of what's the minimum I could do on an empty lot and to be able to put my RV there. Most times you can't just pull up your RV and put it on an empty lot. You can't do that. But what could I do? Because of local laws, zoning, that sort of thing. Yeah, I know. This is America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, but we still have rules. Well, all right. Check the laws. Yep. I'll show you some examples of that in a little bit. All right, so let me go on to kind of expand up the game one more level, right? So this is what I call an RV estate, okay? And that's just my label for it. It's not necessarily different. But this tends to be a large property that has RV features. And usually this is an RV garage that is separate in some way, separate or integrated. Workshops, multi-acres, tend to be one-of-a-kind, special properties. Sometimes they have special prices too, meaning sometimes somebody has engineered this whole thing and is very proud of it. And so they can be trying to sell it sometimes for even more than it's actually worth because of its special features, which is interesting. So therefore, if you're shopping for something like this, you want to use comparables to establish a real value. But it can have a lot of very interesting features. This is one. This is an actual property in, oh, where was this? I think it may be Texas also. But just, it's hard to see these small pictures here. But this is the main house, quite a good-sized house, a big RV garage on the property here. This one happens to be separate. There's the inside of the RV garage. Here's a view back with see features of the spiral staircase out behind and so forth. So these can get quite elaborate. So this is someone who either designed the property this way or bought a property and started doing some RV improvements. And you see some things like this. These are unusual, right? You don't see them everywhere, and they're kind of special. But if this is the kind of thing you're looking for, it's interesting. Now, you notice this one down here. People take a quick look. Oh, is that an RV home? No. You know what it is? It's a garage. It's a garage that's sort of made up to look like a house, right? Because of all the decor on the front. But if you notice these garage doors on the side, this whole thing is nothing but a garage, right? But maybe it matches the house. So this is the kind of thing that can help with resale. It can help with what sometimes people call the spousal approval factor. Familiar with that? Where this is attractive enough, even though it's a garage, right? It's kind of understated that it's a garage. You might not even notice. It looks like a guest house, which is perfect for some guests. Here, go stay in our guest house. All right. So when you're shopping for a property kind of in this class, what you want to compare it to is buying a similar estate somewhere and adding on the RV features, right? Now, is that a better deal to do? Is this thing such a premium price that I do better getting a great deal on a large estate somewhere else and then adding the RV features, things like that? Now, if you're going to add on, sometimes that takes a little more thinking work, a little more design work, a little more checking into rules and things like that. If it already exists, obviously it's under permit, it got the permits, it's there. Not going to have many problems with it, right? So that's one of the advantages of something that already exists. But let's talk about adding on for a moment. The add-ons, essentially, you're looking for a special place for our RV on our property. And I'm talking about this in the context of an RV estate, but this would apply to even a small home, even a small, let's say you have a home on an acre or two or something like that in a town. Could I use some of these ideas to build a place for my RV on my property? Well, the answer is maybe. One place is a special place for the RV. The first thing you obviously have to be concerned with is how can I get the RV in there, right? So one thing I like a lot is corner lots. If you think about being on a corner lot, you have your driveway and garage in the front. Maybe the RV can come in on the other street, right, and can come right behind the house. You've noticed, have you not, with your big RV, that it doesn't like to turn little tight corners. I've seen people say, well, you can just park your RV behind the house. I got a big backyard. Just pull in here and just turn. What? And then you try it and dig a big hole in their yard, right, because you're pivoting, Anyway, so a special place for your RV. Hookups, the electrical hookup is pretty straightforward. By the way, electricians and so forth don't understand RVs for the most part, but if you tell them what we want is a plug like for a dryer, then that's a 50 amp plug, right? Most dryers plug into exactly the same plug as your RV 50 amp. If you want a 30 amp connector, what do you tell them? For a stove, exactly. 30 amp connector is the same as for most ranges, right? So they understand that. Oh, dryer, range, okay, And and you generally run a new wire and a new breaker in the panel, and there you go. Electrical is kind of the easiest of this. Water's not so hard either, right? Hose connection somewhere inside the garage or something. Sewer dump's a little interesting. The key word there is what you tell the plumber you want is a sewer clean out. Say, look, I want a sewer clean out right here in the floor. Don't ask me why I want it. I'm not going to tell you. I want a sewer clean out. And what's a sewer clean out look like? Exactly like an RV dump connection. It's a 4-inch threaded connection, right? I told my builder, I'll show you the house I built a while back in a moment. What he did was very nice. I wanted it on the side of the RV that had the dump, right? So on the left side, but the RV garage was on the right-hand side of the house. So where does the dump want to be? Right smack in the middle of the driveway. He said, oh, we can do that. So he just put a clean out right in the middle of the driveway with one of those iron collars and an iron lid, just like you see in the roads, right? So the cars can run over that all day, right? So he just put that in there. He says, here, you just pry this up. There's your thing. It's a clean out. I'm not asking what you want it for. It's a clean out. There you go. So I've even seen people put a clean out in the floor inside a garage. This does not meet code in most areas. However, is it actually dangerous? Probably not if you know what you're doing and you're careful and so on. I mean, they're trying to protect against fumes coming into the house and things like that. It can be done. Again, you just kind of, nudge, nudge, wink, wink to your builder and have them put it in. And what they'll do is put it in after the inspection. That's the trick, right? I have a wash tub sink in my garage in a flood zone that also had to be put in after the inspection, right? Because by code, you can't have a sink and a wash tub in a flood zone or something, some sort of rules like that. Anyway, so there's some games you can play. I'm not recommending you break any rules. You don't quote me on that, right? There you go. All right. What else can happen here? The city or county may limit the garage size. There's rules I've read sometimes in some areas that will say your garage can't be bigger than the rest of the house. If you want to build the kind of garage, I know you guys, the kind of size garage you'd like to build might just be bigger than the rest of the house. Might it not? Yes, you're nodding? Yeah, I do, right? Well, so sometimes they limit that. Believe it or not, in one area where I'm looking to build a garage in a property here soon, the garage size is limited to, I think it's something like 650 square feet, unless it's attached to the house. And then there's no limit. How fun is this? I say, well, I want it attached anyway, right? So now what does attached mean? Well, attached can mean right up against the house, like attached with a common wall, but it can also mean this. It can also mean a walkway. That counts as attached. So sometimes that's why you see these funny properties, and there's a whole street of them up in Atlanta that I saw, where there's a big giant house. It's a long, narrow lot because it was a reconstructed neighborhood, you know, so the lots were already set. Long, narrow lot, big, giant house taking up almost the width of the lot, and then a walkway all the way back, and the garage is on the back end of the lot, and there's an alley back there, so you get to it. But because it's attached by this humongously long walkway, the garage can be big because it's attached, right? So that's something interesting to keep in mind. So part of this is just reading the rules and understanding what you can and can't do. I thought this was an interesting example here. This is quite a creative thing. I saw this written in a magazine one time. This is in Texas. Somebody's got a big ranch in Texas, and in the back corner of their ranch, they wanted a special little place for their treasured RV here. This is an old, it was an Airstream or something similar to an Airstream. RV, kind of a historical, restored sort of thing. So what he built was this kind of deck with a roof, and it's got, you know, steel flooring and glass and a hot tub here and so forth. And he kind of built this special little accommodation for the RV to kind of incorporate it into the landscape and to be able to use it as for something. I'm not sure what they use it for out there, but I thought it was interesting design, something you can do if you have some property. And then there's plenty of designs for just garages. So you know, there's a whole website, The Garage Shop. TheGaragePlanShop.com is where that came from, right? So there's a whole bunch of garage plans that you can look at as to how you might build that thing within the rules that you have. All right. Questions, thoughts? Time for another breath? Check my time. There's no clock in this room. Oh, there it goes. All right, we're doing fine. I knew that wasn't going to last. Okay. Let's go on, finish up here. So what about building your own? So this can be even more fun, right? What do you say? Well, okay, Barclay, I get all that stuff, all the things that are on the market. None of that turns me on. I want to build something. I want to build my own thing. Well, obviously you have the flexibility to build it anywhere. Again, anywhere within the rules and stuff. We'll get into that. You can design it to your needs. It can be a fun project. How many of you have designed and built a home before? I mean, spec'd it out. Maybe you didn't hammer the nails, but you kind of created it yourself. Yeah, a bunch of you have been through that. How many of those would do it again? Somewhat fewer. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's a big hassle, right? Okay. So up to you, right? But the designs are as unique as you are. You can also design something horrible, right? You can design something that maybe works for you, but nobody else would ever want it, which may or may not be a factor if you ever try to sell it and so on. Many of the designers and builders I've found don't know anything about RVs, so you have to supply all that, or maybe you have, you know, a specialty realtor who can advise them, right, who knows something about that, or somehow you communicate what you need to know. I had to sort of learn a lot of this and figure it out myself. It's quite easy to do this on a large property, right? Because if you got lots of space, you can do almost anything, any shape, any size. Much more interesting, shall we say, if you're trying to do it on a residential lot that already exists, or a lot you're going to buy, because maybe you don't want to be out in the wild, woolly West somewhere. You want to be in town, you know, or in a subdivision, or in a suburban kind of setting with some stores around. You don't want to be that remote. That's a possibility. It's also easy with a large budget, right? Because the high budget way to do this is you go to who? An architect, right? And there's the high dollar way to do it. I'm not down on architects. They're great. And if you do that, it'll be an expensive way because you, of course, have to pay the architect to design the whole thing from the ground up. Now, they may start with a plan, but they're going to design it. And it's probably, you might get the best result there because most architects will refuse to design something horrible. You know, they'll make it reasonable, right? They'll say, no, don't do this, do it this way, right? And they'll kind of help you with that. So that can be a value. But what if you're trying to do this on a more limited budget? You're trying to get the functionality of this without going the high dollar custom route. How can you do that? Well, can you start as a normal home with a small increment? So let's look at a couple of concepts just for fun here of how to design and build your own RV home. What if you want a big home on a tiny lot? This is a street in Atlanta, in fact. One place I live is Atlanta. And it's a street of these big homes that have been reconstructed in the last few years on a nice little residential street that used to have tiny little homes on it. You know, these reconstructed kind of streets you see, right? So it's trying to be a big home. This is the example home that's already built on that street. I was trying to say, well, could we design an RV home in the same space, kind of copying this? So I took this and I just took PowerPoint and kind of cut and pasted some things, and I came up with this. I said, well, what if instead of this, whatever these rooms are, whatever that stuff is behind there, we make that the RV garage? Okay? And we have a big RV garage right here instead with this little deck on top still, right? And the rest of the house is very similar. Well, so this didn't require a whole custom redesign. We just sort of changed the interior structure a little bit and said, all right, we'll put a door here and so on. So we still use the basic form. This is the sketch of the design, and I thought this was kind of unique, right? So here's the house, here's the deck above, here's the RV garage, and then here's the regular two-car garage in behind, just like the original house design. So what does this require? Well, just sort of two driveways, right? Here's the driveway for the RV. I go straight into the RV garage. For the home, the driveway here, I turn into the garage, just like it was originally intended. This house is 2 floors. I think, in fact, it even had some more flooring above it, and could actually end up being quite a sizable home. 3,400 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, RV garage, all on quite a small residential lot. So that was kind of interesting. You know, look at what you can do if that's what you want to do, right? In fact, this garage, we're going to make this entire garage as tall as the RV garage, and just put a loft above this to have like workshop or loft or storage, something like that above that. We'll use that space, you know. So there's concept number 2. Here's concept number 2. What if you want a beach house? Anybody want to live at the beach? Can you have an RV home at the beach? Maybe. Well, what's built at the beach, at least this is from Carolina Beach, where I'll show you another home from there in a moment. Most of the homes are built like this, in floodplains, on these raised piling foundations. You've seen this before, typical beach kind of thing, right? So they're on sticks, we call it, because of flooding and whatnot. So some people have had the idea, well, why not just enclose this lower part as a garage? And some people do that, and you'll see some of these homes that have that as an enclosed garage below. Well, I say, go one better. Why not make that garage 2 stories tall, and I'll put my RV in it? All right? So we ended up with this. And I thought this was kind of neat. It actually looks like a big house. What it actually is a small house with a giant garage under it. So it's got a 2-story garage. This is a 14-foot-high RV door that doesn't look as big as it is. See, how high do you think that door is? That's only 10. See, again, the scale, right? Because by setting it back, it kind of changed. By doing this arch, and also the other visual trick, see that right there? That's an extra tall front door. So by making the front door extra tall, it makes the garage doors not appear as giant. See how you kind of trick the eye a little bit? So it kind of came out, I thought, visually pretty good. And this is quite an interesting design. The home is actually on the 3rd floor, right? So you get to walk up the stairs. Organizing the stairway in this, by the way, was one of the most tricky design challenges, because we didn't want a stairway that comes out into the thing, because it would make it hard to maneuver the RV if the stairway stuck out into the driveway. So instead, what you do is you go in the front door, you go up 1 flight of stairs to a loft area, then you make a U-turn, you go up a half a flight, you make another U-turn, go up another half a flight, and that's how you end up at the floor. What it also has, I'll hasten to add, is an elevator shaft, right? And that's actually quite common in these homes. So if you're going to be on the 3rd floor, maybe an elevator is a good idea, right, to put in, and it accommodates that. That's right. Older, guests, whatever reason. It didn't make sense to build this without the elevator shaft. This one actually doesn't have the elevator in it, but it could, right? Those are some extra large closets at the moment, right? But it could easily be, you could easily put an elevator in it if you wanted to, right? So this can work for anybody with the elevator and so forth. There's even houses, by the way, out there that do that same format but without the garage. They have like bedroom levels down low, and they put the main living level up high for the views. Right? So this is not that unusual to kind of make it this sort of upside-down arrangement. But I thought this was an interesting concept, right? And this can be redone in a lot of raised property areas like lakes and ocean fronts and beaches and so forth. And this, again, this was not extremely expensive, because all it is the standard beach house on raised pilings with the pilings a little taller and a little more siding. That's all the thing was done is raised. See, it didn't add that much cost to it, right? A little more siding, little bit longer pilings. They said they had to special order the pilings for this. There's only 2 companies that make pilings this tall. So they had to do that, but that's about it for what was special. Oh, this is the plan. I'll just show you really quick here. So here's the ground floor, which shows the garage. Here's the elevator shaft. This is the smaller garage, and then this is the foyer finished inside with the stairway in it. The middle floor has this loft with a potential extra bathroom there. That's kind of a workshop sort of area. And then here's the RV garage side as well. And then the main living level. Here's the main floor, which has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's about a 1,600 square foot living space kind of thing, typical layout. And then on the attic, could have another bathroom and was sort of roughed in, finished, that it could be finished out into another bedroom area and stuff. So this whole thing is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, but with a little bit of interior work, it could be 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. So you have some expansion potential or whatever you like, right? All right, give you one more concept here and then a few things to wrap up. Here's concept number 3. This is a development home. What I mean by that is it's a housing development. You know, you see these signs. You know, houses from the 290s, houses from the 300s, whatever, down this street, right? Well, what if I went into there and said, I want you to build me a house in here, just like your normal house, except I want one little extra feature. Okay, it's not a little extra feature, but it's an extra feature. It's an RV garage. Could you build one with an RV garage on the side? And the answer, and here's how I communicated. And of course, their answer is, what? What's an RV garage? You know. So I took their plan and said, here, how about this? Here's this home. Here's a 2-car garage, which I want to make a 3-car garage, and then I want to put an RV garage right alongside of it, just like that. And I just sketched that on their plan and said, here, can you do that? And it turns out they could. I think this is quite a nice house. You see what it is here? This is the garage. This is the end view of the garage, kind of turn into the garage. Quite a big home, 3,400 feet or something like that, or 3,700 feet, sorry, and so on. But imagine that RV garage sitting right over here on the side, right? And again, not cheap, but not a big additional cost, because all they're doing is pushing out that one wall, a little more framing, a little more roofing. They're just adding on. Contrast that with if you went to an architect, gave them this, and said, here, design this for me. Way more. Custom build, custom construction. What I wanted was the economies of a development home that they already know how to build, cookie cutter, with just this one feature. And many builders, not every builder, but many builders are willing to talk. And as long as the lot's wide enough, you can do that. Now, this is very interesting if you think about what's going on here. What you would end up with is a home with an RV garage in a development with an HOA brand new. Almost impossible any other way. But you see, if the builder, how do you get around the home?
I'm just saying, an HOA would let that happen?
No, but here's the key. Guess what doesn't exist yet when the builder is building? The HOA. The builder who's developing that whole complex builds it that way. How's the HOA going to come back later and say, you can't have built that? Very different than an existing home and you say, I want to add an RV garage. Yeah, good luck with that, with the HOA, right? But you kind of get in before the HOA has all its power. So this is an interesting trick, right? And I didn't actually do this home, but it was a concept that would have worked, you know, and be quite economical for that. And you can do that pretty much anywhere where they're building new homes. All right, a couple of quick subjects to wrap up here. You got to know the rules. It's important to know the rules. Even if you intend to break the rules, you got to know the rules, right? So there are 3 kinds of rules that are important. The city and county rules. So is RV parking allowed on a residential property? If it's allowed at all by the city and county, and in many it is, often the rules, and this is just general because it's going to vary place to place, often the RV has to be parked behind the house. Usually the definition of behind the house means behind the front plane of the house. So therefore it can be to the side of the house, but it doesn't have to be actually literally behind the house, right? It has to be often within the building setbacks. So in other words, if the zoning for that lot has a 15-foot setback, nothing can be built within 15 feet of the property line, often the RV can't be in that space either. It also has to have that clearance. Sometimes that's a requirement. Sometimes it says, it's kind of vague language. Sometimes it says it needs to be hidden, but not completely out of sight. Hard to make it completely out of sight, isn't it? Because most times fences are limited to 6 feet tall. How are you going to hide your RV behind a 6-foot fence? Right? It's going to show. Some require a hardened surface. Somebody mentioned concrete. Some require you got to put down some concrete or pavers or something hardened for you to park the thing on. You can't park it on the dirt. Right. HOAs almost all prohibit RV parking. And the worst thing about HOAs is they reserve the right to make new rules at any time. So even if it's not in the HOA rules and you go to try to do it, they could come back and make a rule against it. And just say, not only are we saying no to you, we're going to make a rule against it now. And they've been known to do that. So HOAs have their place, but if you're trying to do something special, it's difficult. Also, if you're looking to buy a home and add RV features, it's usually necessary you're buying a home that doesn't have an HOA attached to it, right? All right. New building by developer, we already mentioned that. There are restrictions, though. When the builder went to get the development set up, they had to agree to a set of covenants. In fact, they had to propose a set of covenants. Those covenants are much more general and much less restrictive than HOA covenants, but they still are restrictive. They're usually things like minimums. We're going to build in this neighborhood, we're going to build a minimum of this size house, it's going to have a minimum of this many bedrooms, it's going to have a minimum of a 2-car garage. So those things usually don't get in your way of what you're trying to do, but they are something to be aware of, and if you're looking to build, you should find out what the covenants are in place for that area if you're going to build in there. All right. A couple of notes here quickly on protecting your RV home. The whole idea is to have an owned home that you can leave and go travel. So the first thing to consider, in my opinion, is physical security. What's physical security mean? It means making your home hard to break into, right? Most homes are not at all hard to break into, all right? Now, why is there a picture of a bear up there? There's an old story about two people who are out hunting, and one of them shoots a bear, and the bear gets real angry and starts chasing the two guys, and one guy stops to put on his running shoes. And the other guy says, "You're crazy. You can't outrun a bear, running shoes or not." And he says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I only have to outrun you." Right? So how does that apply here? It applies, you don't have to make your home some castle. You just have to make it substantially harder to break into than all the other homes in the area. So the thieves will go break into those homes, right? So how do you do that? Well, doors and windows are the main key, right? If somebody's willing to cut through a wall, what can you do, right? But doors and windows. Ground floor windows are bad news, right? So if I could have a preference for a secure home that I was going to leave a lot, I wouldn't have ground floor windows. Now sometimes that makes it almost impossible to build or to use, but maybe I need to secure those windows. Maybe I need some bars, on the windows to just not make it impossible, make it hard to break into. Ground floor windows, very exposed. What's the worst thing? How about those nice glass panels right next to your front door? Lovely, right? One hand through, open the door. Okay, you want to prevent that, right? So block that up, something, right? Doors. How easy are doors to kick in? Many of them very easy. Why? Because the striker is secured with screws that are about this long into one 2x4. All right? You see them kicking in doors on the TV? It's usually just that easy. There are products you can get to reinforce doors, and that make them impossible to bust in. Again, not trying to outrun the bear, just trying to make it. Somebody gives a door a few hard kicks and it doesn't bust, they're going to another house. They're not going to sit there for 10 minutes trying to bust the thing down. So just some things to think about. Physical security. Why? Because it's likely you're going to get broken into? No, probably not. But it gives you peace of mind. It gives you confidence that I can lock this thing up, travel across the country for months, and I don't have to worry about my house because it's extremely hard to break into. It's probably going to be fine. Even if somebody tries to break in, they're not going to get in. Alarm systems are great, but isn't it a little late at that point? They're already in. I'd rather stop them from getting in, right? I still would have the alarm, though. Remote camera viewing, again, mostly for peace of mind. Drop cam is a great, very easy product, so that's kind of fun. All right, a couple of quick things on Florida, and I'm probably running out of time here, right? Let's see here. I've got a few minutes. Good, finish up. Well, why is Florida? Florida, it's a great time to buy in Florida. Florida values are still low. They're coming up slowly. Florida's coming up more slowly than some areas, so there are still great deals. If you probably know Florida weather, tropical, subtropical. It actually has the warmest average temperatures in the U.S. Across the whole year, the warmest temperatures. It's not the hottest place at any given time, which is good news, right? But on average, it's the warmest. As home-based states go, you've probably seen the book. Florida, Texas, South Dakota tend to be the best home-based states. Florida's right in there. Easy registration, no state income tax. Laws and a lot of the policies cater to non-resident owners. I went into Florida, got my first driver's license in Florida. 8 years later, they wanted to renew it. I did it online. They just sent me a new one. They didn't even want a new picture. And this is Florida, right? Because they're like, we know our people are everywhere, fine, whatever. So all my vehicle registration stuff is all by mail. There's no vehicle inspections. You don't have to drag your vehicles back to Florida to have them inspected at some point. So Florida has a lot to recommend it. There's lots to do, as I'm sure you know, parks, water of all kinds, has the longest coastline of any state in the Union except for? No, Alaska. That's the only one that beats it. You want to put your RV home in Alaska? Go for it. Second to Alaska, Florida's got the most coastline, all right, by far. All right. Let's go on here. So why use a realtor very quickly? You're probably familiar with the real estate business. Realtors operate on both the buying and the selling side. If you're dealing with the realtor or broker who's selling the property, they're trying to sell you the property. They have no obligation to give you a balanced, they can't lie to you, but they have they're not on your side. See what I mean? They're trying to sell it to you, right? I'm not saying they're misleading you, right? But they're just giving you the one side of the story, right? On the buyer side, that should be somebody representing your interests, right? Now, real estate licensing assures some level of knowledge. They had to pass a test, all right? But you probably know lots of people who have real estate licenses that aren't necessarily experts, right? I found that when I was looking at this. I knew more very quickly about some aspects of this than they did. That's probably why I ended up being one, you know? But if you find a specialist who knows something about what you're doing, they can be valuable in helping you find and evaluate and compare properties and advise you on some things that you haven't thought about and so on. Buyer's agents the services are free to buyers, right? The buyer's agent is compensated out of the sale, so paid by the seller, as you probably know. If you're selling, if you've got an RV property to sell, what you want to evaluate is the broker or agent's ability to market that property, right? That's the key, is how do you market that, how are you going to market that property? All right, well, that's the end of the show here. Again, this form, if you would, fill this out, at least put your name and your email, and I will send you a copy of these materials in a PDF form so you can have them to refer to if you like. In fact, I'll even send you a link where you can get the recording. If this recording turns out well, I'll make that available as well. If you're interested in RV homes or interested in talking to me about that or consulting, again, all my services are free to you as a buyer. Just fill out a little more information here and leave it for me, and I'll get back to you. I'm around here. If you want to talk some more now or later on during the convention, we can do that. Up to you if you'd like to hear more. So thank you very much for coming, and have a great day.